Good to go.
All right. Good evening, everyone. One second here as I try to get my computer organized. So does everyone have take a look at the agenda for tonight? Anyone add anything on there?
I do not.
Okay.
I did look at them. I do not need to add anything. How's that? I'll answer both questions. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Do we want to go ahead and accept the agenda?
Sure.
All right, great.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to.
You there, Erica?
I am. Can you hear me?
There you go. Yeah, I can hear you.
It just I see the agenda and I don't think I need to add anything to it. I apologize.
All right, cool. All right, so the first we had the minutes from last meeting. Did everyone have a chance to look at those?
I did look at those. It doesn't look like it deviates a whole lot from the agenda. Is there really any meat in that? Like,
not a lot of meat in it, no.
I mean, to me, if I'm in 4 months, if I go to look at that, I have no idea what we really talked about.
I rewatched it and there wasn't like really in-depth more than what was kind of on the agenda, what we discussed. Like, to be honest, I mean, it was kind of an overview of everything, topics. So
you're saying it was a non-substantial meeting? Is that what you're saying?
It pretty much was, yeah.
Good thing we wasted our time. Let's not do it again tonight. Let's make something happen.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really get much done in that meeting. It wasn't very long, so. All right, so anything else on the agenda? Or the minutes?
Other than lack of content, no.
All right, great. I'll make a note. I mean, not everyone can be as good as Erica's notes, so her minutes are highly detailed.
Spot on is the word you're looking for. They are.
Listen, I don't got time for that. All right, we'll move on. So conditional meeting, I know that we discussed last meeting, basically we were planning to have it the first planning commission meeting, like before it. Ron, has that happened? I don't even know when the planning commission meets. Hello, Ron? Is he still on?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry about that. I'm having difficulty here. I don't believe that the committee met in July, and I need to confirm with Bill for August.
All right. Well,
I'm sorry, Christian.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ron, can I just add to that I have not seen any kind of meeting notice for the CIC, for the Planning Commission, for anything. And that is a huge violation. So can we make sure that when they're having their meetings that it gets the same proper notice as any other meeting in North College Hill?
Yes, although I don't know that that's a quote unquote a violation. The CIC is a 501c3, so it's not a government entity in that sense. It's its own organization, but I do think that they do have one coming up in the couple, well, not this week, but next week. So we can make sure it's put on the social media calendar.
And what about the Planning Commission?
Well, again, they didn't meet, so I need to talk to Bill about when they're going to be meeting next.
Ask that.
Thank you.
Straight down to the left. It's like a big building. It's like
all right. So So Ron, whenever you have that, just let us know if we're having it so we can go ahead and schedule, make sure that we get the conditional use permits
Okay.
legislation.
Yeah.
I think we discussed last time to have it like an hour beforehand. And that's about it. So next we have the entrance signages. I know last time we talked in June, we talked about getting estimates and then also having like the sign sponsored. Ron, do you have any estimates put together?
Yeah, actually, I've asked Marty, excuse me, to purchase the signs. I believe that they're going to be roughly in about the $200 to $300 range. And I'm saying that because one of the things that we were looking to do originally is to see whether or not we would be able to put the logo on the sign, but we had not been able to really get a what do you call it? Whatever the image is. We weren't able to locate a proper image. So basically what I told them to just go ahead and do was to at least get the wording on there so that we can get them completed. So that was a couple of weeks ago. And so I can try to get an idea of when they will be ready sometime later this week.
All right. Is it $200 per sign or?
Yeah,
all?
I believe it'll be somewhere. Without that, it'll probably be about $200 per sign. I think we were looking at the 3x5 that we were looking at was actually pretty big. But the smaller sign, I believe, which is, forgive me because I don't remember the exact dimensions it is, but it would be the smaller sign, which would be able to be visible, obviously telling people welcome to North College Hill. And I think we were looking at basically 6 different locations, which would be at the beginning of Clover Nook, at the beginning of Labordo. We would have one on each end of Galbraith. We would have one at Savannah, one at Betts, one at Hamilton, right? And then and then one at Simpson, I believe. So is that 6? I may have counted that wrong, but basically those are going to be the areas that we were covering.
Great.
Ron, did you get anywhere on seeing if any businesses would sponsor a sign?
I have not yet, to be honest, and I have to apologize. I did just meet with the secretary of the chamber today, so I can put that out to ask them if they'd be willing to do that.
Thank you.
Great. All right. So next, moving right along, we have the Tree City legislation and proclamation. So I did send that over to the mayor for the proclamation. I think she's on. I just said that today. And then the legislation was reviewed by the law director and also sent to the president of council. And so that should be on the next council agenda. Did the mayor administration have any questions about that?
Not as far as the tree legislation is concerned. I think that we had actually talked about that before. So at this particular point, I don't. I do know that, or if I remember correctly, this is obviously a significant part of being deemed or being designated as a tree city. And of course, as you know, Mr. Hedger, we did forward you the financial information that would support that. So.
Yeah, so I have that. Once we complete the 3 readings for the ordinance, we can go ahead and submit an application, and the applications don't start until October or September, and they go until I think November. And so at that point, we'd be able to submit our application. I think it just has to be in the work with council. It doesn't have to be passed yet. So. All right, any other questions from the committee? So I know last month or 2 months ago, we talked about a comprehensive plan. We talked about getting some grants for it, maybe talking to Hamilton County Planning Commission commissioners to determine like what we can do to actually have a comprehensive, because it did seem like everyone wanted to have a comprehensive plan since we haven't had one in a while. I just wanted to know if, you know, the administration, is this something that they're interested in or think is even doable in the foreseeable future?
Mr. Chair, I have spoken to Hamilton County Planning, and my preliminary discussion with them was based on the previous plan. They had come in before to help put together a comprehensive plan. And I had been in touch with some of the representatives from there prior. Now, the one particular individual who was really instrumental in helping to put this together, I have not spoken with yet, but I would like to talk to him before I make any comment on whether or not it is feasible or what must be done to update the current plan. I think to be honest, I think that might be the more reasonable approach to addressing it, is updating the last plan that was developed. So, but obviously, if we're going to do that would be even a major process there, because it would not only require input from council planning, but also from the community. So, so I can, like I said, I can try to reach out to him to see if I can talk to him about how we might go about doing that.
So who is him? I don't know who this.
Oh, his name is Brian. Oh, please, I'm sorry. I apologize. His name escaped me right now, but he's basically the point of contact that I have been working with since I've been here, as far as planning commission. He works at the county.
All right. All right. Any other questions about the comprehensive plan? About where we want to move forward with it? Do we want to update it? The current one? No? Silence?
Mr. Hedger, I forgot that you don't have video going and you can't see me shaking my head no. Forgive me.
Oh, I have video. I can see you.
You can?
Yes.
Okay.
We just can't see him.
That is correct. All right. Well, I want to give everyone some homework if they want. I know we all love homework. If I don't know if everyone's read comprehensive plans of other cities, but I would like everyone to actually read one and kind of maybe take some ideas out of there and come to the next meeting to get some ideas.
We read one. We read ours.
Well,
remember?
yes, ours. But I'm saying let's do a little bit more current of a comprehensive plan, since that one is quite old at this point. I know that the city of Wyoming has just completed one in the last year or two, and Coleraine also currently has one, I believe, that just came out. So it might be helpful just to read a couple of theirs and get some ideas from it. Give me 1 second. All right. Ms. Underwood and I were able to get the NCH Beauty District letters. We got a draft put together. I sent that over to the administration to put into whatever form that they need to, and then send it out to the current beauty salons or parlors or what have you. And once those are sent out, we can kind of schedule a meeting date, hopefully eventually. I know with everything going on, I don't know if anyone's going to really want to come to that, but at least we can start the process.
You might be able to, do exactly what we're doing now, which is
Yeah.
having a Zoom meeting as opposed to trying to get people to, come to a physical meeting. I
Yeah.
agree with you. I think that given our current climate, many might be discouraged from trying to attend a physical meeting.
Mary Jo, have you figured out how we can have people attend our meetings? Or did you start working on something like that? Or
So I'm not sure I completely understand the question. So I had offered it to council that if anybody wanted to go back in, they could, because ICRC offers a hybrid kind of thing. Now, as far as working out a real plan as far as the public seating, I did not work towards that at all.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So to answer that question, we already have seating spaced out in the council chambers. So that part we've taken care of.
actually, somebody mentioned in one of the committee meetings, which they all run together after a point in time for me, that we should probably try to develop a plan for people to attend our committee meetings as well as our council meetings. And maybe it was as a part of my committee. I don't know. I'll look back at my notes.
I think the only thing that would, obviously be necessary would be that we would need to just make sure that we have people here that would be able to ensure that people are wearing masks. B, we certainly already have the sanitation stations set up already, so that wouldn't be an issue. And again, we do have seating, so just to make sure that we would have people that would limit the number of citizens that would attend the meetings. Outside of that, I think we have everything we need in order for them to attend.
I was hoping we.
Oh,
okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the president of council did reach out to me today, and he said that he would be willing to go back in and be the on-site person. I did not ask him if he wanted to be the mask police or anything like that. So we can still address that with him, I guess, or if anybody else wishes to go back in.
All right. Anything else with nope. All right. So next we have the suicide prevention month. Ron, I know you said you've been working on that, and I haven't seen anything come to council, so I don't know if is that still happening?
No, we actually obviously after I apologize, after COVID-19 hit, we had been meeting, and then we stopped meeting for planning purposes. We can because originally our plan was to get something out toward the June meeting. But no, I did not get that out. So there is one that, we can have a resolution that would be able to be prepared for the September meeting, because that is the month. If council is willing to consider that and pass it, but I don't believe at this particular point we're going to have any formal programs that we were working on, that we were planning on at the time.
Yeah, I think that kind of leads me into like one of my last points here. If you look,
Actually,
jump.
Christian, before you change the subject, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I did mean to interrupt you, but I didn't mean to be rude. So I have a suggestion about the suicide prevention month. The Warrior Run, which is what I kind of mentioned before, which is it's basically it was something that they held every year where you can either walk or run, but just kind of in memory of a man who had committed suicide, a local individual, but a lot of people kind of participate, and they could participate in teams. They have a website and everything. I participated last year with a friend who lost his son. And I thought that, maybe the city of North College Hill could just create a team and then just kind of encourage people to, join our team, because it's all going to be virtual this year.
That sounds good. My only thing that I was going to say is that, with COVID still obviously happening all around us and still an uptick throughout the US, do we want to have community events? I know we talked about that in June, thinking that it was going down. Is that something we're interested in entertaining? Because I know we talked about National Night Out. Cincinnati's canceled their National Night Out.
Yes, sir. Mr. Hedger, as you pointed out, we did not plan for any what we would call major gatherings. So I can just tell you that all of those were postponed, or canceled for this year. So, but again, that doesn't preclude council from just passing a resolution if that is
I agree,
something that interests council. But yes, to answer your question, we had stopped meeting and discontinued planning for 2020 for that as a result of Corona.
I would be interested in still passing at least a resolution, proclaiming Suicide Awareness Month, Prevention Awareness Month. Does everyone else agree with that? Do you think we could have passed it as, I guess that would have to be emergency, would it, to not do 3 readings?
It would have to be an emergency, and I'm in support of that. I think that's a good idea. And if you're okay with me creating a team, I'm not really sure how that works, or if I have to ask Mr. Mosby to create the team. I think we can create a team, just on behalf of the city of North College Hill, so that people can participate in the virtual Warrior Run as a part of the city of North College Hill, or, kind of on our team.
I think that's a good idea, but I don't think I can make that call.
Erica, do you have all the details for the Warrior Run? Since it's virtual, is there a specific day that you're supposed to go out and walk? Is there a website to donate to, or how?
There's a website.
The money. Okay.
So I just Google everything, so I'm going to Google it. The website is cincywarriorrun.org. So CINCY Warrior Run, all one word, .org. And it just says the virtual Warrior Run. Let's see. They're doing team registration right now. And it said the virtual run is from September 26th through, I hate when they do that scroll thing, October 10th. So what I suspect is that if it's virtual, then you kind of figure out where or how you can do the same walk wherever you are, and then kind of post it or report it on the website.
Got it. Thank you.
Ron, is it something that you're interested in creating a team for North College Hill?
Well, I certainly wouldn't mind helping, Ms. Underwood. I just you know, as I don't know if it would be quote unquote a city event though. I would probably have some hesitancy doing it as a city official, but certainly if somebody, like, I would have no problem as a resident just, you know, helping to coordinate a team, and that team could then be headed up by Ms. Underwood.
All right. So Ms. Underwood, the buck has been passed to you.
Okay, well, I just didn't want to step on anybody's toes, so
Right.
this is very easy for me, so I can absolutely do this. It's not a problem.
Great. I think that's great. All right.
So you can create some creative team name that's like NCH Gov or NCH Ledge or something creative,
I
and
will
then
do
we'll just
that.
join. But I think I kind of agree with Ron that I don't know that we should do it as the city, but we should do it individually. If you want to do it individually, you should do it individually. How's that?
All right. So next I have Ron. You said that you have the plan for the Parks and Recreation, the resolution that was passed back, I think, in April.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this report was prepared at the request of the City and Community Development and Recreation Committee to determine the feasibility of establishing a recreation program for the citizens of North College Hill. This report should not be construed as a prescription for City Council to pursue a specific course of action. Instead, it provides recommendations for City Council to consider when collectively deciding upon policies that may enhance our existing recreation program structure. So to begin with, the justification for our existing recreation structure is derived from Ohio Revised Codes, section 755.12, which states the legislative authority of a municipal corporation, the Board of Township Trustees, or Board of County Commissioners of any county may designate and set apart for use as parks, playgrounds, playfields, gymnasiums, public baths, swimming pools, or indoor recreation centers, any land or buildings owned by any such municipal corporation, township, or county, and not dedicated or devoted to other public use. Such municipal corporation, township, or county may, in the manner provided by law for the acquisition of land or buildings for public purposes in such municipal corporations, townships, or county, acquire lands or buildings therein for such use. This provision does not require any municipal corporation to establish a recreation program. Rather, it allows for it provided that the municipal corporation has sufficient resources for operating such a program. Further, according to Ohio Revised Code 755.14, if a legislative authority of a municipal corporation determines that the power to equip, operate, and maintain parks, playgrounds, playfields, gymnasiums, public baths, swimming pools, or recreation centers shall be exercised by a recreation board, it may establish such a board, which shall possess all the powers and be subject to all the responsibilities of the respective local authorities under section 755.12 to 755.18 of the revised code. The board shall consist of 5 persons, 2 of whom shall be members of the Board of Education of the city or village school district, or shall be appointed by that Board of Education. The other members of the Recreation Board shall be appointed by the mayor or manager as executive of such municipal corporation with the consent of council. The members who are Board of Education members and members appointed by a Board of Education shall be residents of the school district, making the appointment, but need not be residents of the municipal corporation. All other members of the board shall be residents of the municipal corporation. All members of the board shall serve for terms of 5 years, except that the members first appointed shall be appointed for such terms that the term of one member shall expire annually thereafter. Members of the board shall serve without pay Vacancies in the board occurring otherwise than by expiration of term shall be filled in the same manner as the original appointments. Currently, the charter of the city of North College Hill does provide for a recreation commission. This commission is fully vested with the power to equip, operate, and maintain the existing assets that are used for recreational purposes. Finally, Ohio Revised Code 755.18 states all expenses incurred in the operation of parks, playgrounds, playfields, gymnasiums, swimming pools, public baths, indoor recreation centers, and community centers established as provided by Section 755.12 to 755.17 of the Revised Code shall be payable from the treasury of the municipal corporation, township, park district, county, or school district, or in the case of a joint recreational district or an educational service center, from its general fund. The local authorities of a municipal corporation, county, township, park district, or school district having power to appropriate money may annually appropriate and cause to be raised by taxation an amount for the purpose of maintaining and operating those parks, recreation facilities, and community centers. A joint recreation district may levy a tax subject to Chapter 5705 of the Revised Code to acquire, maintain, and operate recreational facilities and community centers. A study by the National Recreation and Park Association concluded that parks and recreation have three values that make them essential to community, essential services to communities. One is economic value, two would be the health and environmental benefits, and then three would be the social importance. Just as water, sewer, and public safety are considered essential public services, parks are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in a community, ensuring the health of families and youth, contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and a region. So economic value. What are some of the ways that parks improve economic value? One is that they improve the local tax base and increase property values. It is proven that private property values increase the value of privately owned land the closer such land is to parks. This increase in private property value due to proximity to parks increases property tax values and improves local economies. There was a Texas A&M review of 25 studies investigating whether parks and open space contributed positively to the property values of surrounding properties, and found that 20 of the 25 studies found that property values were higher. The real estate market consistently demonstrates that many people are willing to pay a larger amount for property located close to parks and open space areas than for a home that does not offer this amenity. And so while that part may be true, you will see a little bit later on that our city may be either an exception or an anomaly to that, and largely in part due to our being landlocked as well as density. American Forests, a national conservation organization that promotes forestry, estimates that trees in cities save $400 billion in stormwater retention facility costs. Quality parks and recreation are cited as one of the top 3 reasons that business cite in relocation decisions in a number of studies. Parks and recreation programs produce a significant portion of operating costs from revenue generated from fees and charges. Parks and recreation programs generate revenue directly from fees and charges, but more importantly, provide significant indirect revenues to local and regional economies from sports tournaments and such events as arts, music, and holiday festivals. Economic activity from hospitality, expenditures, tourism, fuel, recreation, equipment sales, and many other private sector businesses is of true and sustained value to local and regional economies. Second, the health and environmental benefits. Parks are the places that people go to get healthy and to stay fit, particularly now with COVID-19. Since people are encouraged not to be indoors and in close quarters, parks would be more relevant, particularly when they do have fitness equipment. Parks and recreation programs and services contribute to the health of children, youth, adults, and seniors. According to the studies by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, creating, improving, and promoting places to be physically active can improve individual and community health and result in a 25% increase of residents who exercise at least 3 times per week. A study by Penn State University showed significant correlations to reductions in stress, lowered blood pressure, and perceived physical health to the length of stay in visits to parks. Parks and protected public lands are proven to improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, produce habitat for wildlife, and provide a place for children and families to connect with nature and recreate outdoors together. Finally, social importance. Parks are a tangible reflection of the quality of life in a community. They provide identity for citizens and are a major factor in the perception of quality of life in a given community. Parks and recreation services are often cited as one of the most important factors in surveys of how livable communities are. Parks also provide, Parks provide gathering places for families and social groups, as well as for individuals of all ages and economic status, regardless of their ability to pay for access. An ongoing study by the Trust for Public Land shows that over the past decade, voter approval rates for bond measures to acquire parks and conserve open space exceed 75%. Clearly, the majority of the public views parks as an essential priority for government spending. Parks and recreation programs provide places for health and well-being that are accessible by persons of all ages and abilities, especially to those with disabilities. In a 2007 survey of Fairfax County, Virginia, for example, residents of 8 of 10 households rated a quality park system either very important or extremely important to their quality of life. Research by the Project on Human Development in Chicago neighborhoods indicates that community involvement in neighborhood parks is associated with lower levels of crime and vandalism. Access to parks and recreation opportunities has been strongly linked to the reductions in crime and reduced juvenile delinquency. Again, that will be one that I will discuss slightly a little bit later, as I believe that some of our own evidence shows otherwise. And then finally,
Mr.
parks have
Mosby, I'm sorry.
Sure.
I apologize for interrupting you. I think that's a better thing to say. What are you reading, and do we have a copy of that?
No, you do not have a copy of it in front of you right now. No, this
Mr.
is
Mosby,
a report that I prepared. Yes.
can you send us a copy of what you're reading?
Yes. Yeah. I can send that.
All right. So part of the resolution that that we passed was the recommendations. I think most of us understand the importance of parks in our area. Do you have an overview? I don't want to cut you off short, but we only have a certain amount of time, and I'd like to hear the main recommendations and then what your findings are.
Well, and there's a lot. So I do believe that all of that would need to be reported at least. So,
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I apologize, Mr. Mosby and Mr. Chair. I apologize. Different people kind of process information differently, and I am not processing anything that you're reading because I don't process information that way. If I had I know I need a copy of the report, and I do appreciate that you're reading the report. So.
All right, so here's what I'll do. I will. I'm going to highlight a couple of things here because they are important and they do need to be stressed. So, Mr. Hedger, you were asking about a few things. So, number one would have to be funding. So, basically, our city is a city of less than 20,000 people, and on average, for the most recent performance review, cities of our size have an average operating expenditure of about $96.77 per person. In other words, if North College Hill used that median number, that would equate to an operating budget of about $899,000 for parks, or basically $900,000. Assuming an industry-wide average of 54% for personnel expenses, that would mean that about $486,000 would then be dedicated to payroll expenses. We currently have, of course, 5 parks. And of those, Wise Park is the only one that really doesn't have playground equipment on the premises. And I should say this, we also have Pies Park, but Pies Park is leased. So, having said that, though, I will go to I'll conclude here very quickly with the challenges and the recommendations. So one of the first challenges that has to be addressed is determining what priority the development of a recreation program has in our given environment. And I do state the fact that Mount Healthy, of course, recently passed a fire levy, which will now enable them to hire 7 full-time firefighters. Quite frankly, North College Hill will be the likely recipient of much more mutual aid in our region. And the reason for that is because we are currently insufficiently staffed as far as our fire department is concerned. So having said that, the recommendations that you were asking for, the first one that my recommendation is that addressing the issue of recreation should be prioritized. So while there is no question that parks and recreation are needed, such services are not considered essential, as I stated earlier in my report. Safety services, however, such as police and fire services, are essential, and we have to ensure that funding is sufficient to provide needed services to our stakeholders without relying on mutual aid from other departments. So that would be number one. Number two, the North College Hill Recreation Commission should be charged with developing a plan to create a recreation program for the city. This plan should be drafted and presented to the mayor for approval and then consent by council. And the plan should include choosing a recreation director to oversee the activities of the Recreation Commission. It is also the belief of this administration that the Recreation Commission should work closely with the mayor to develop a plan that will complement the mayor's vision for the city. Number three is that the parks, which are now being maintained by the Public Works Department, should come under the auspices of the Recreation Commission. This would be the most appropriate group to oversee the stewardship of our public outdoor areas. Number four, Clovernut Country Club has expressed an interest in working with young students for their golf and caddy program, and such a public-private partnership would be ideal for our community and expose many of the younger people to the game of golf, something that they might not otherwise be exposed to. Number five, if a tax levy were to be considered for the purpose of funding a recreation program, this administration believes the reasonable millage for our municipality would be approximately 2.5 mils, which would generate approximately $275,000 in revenue. This amount would be able to pay for a part-time recreation director up to 25 hours per week year-round to help to maintain the parks, coordinate the annual car show, purchase necessary equipment, and to begin to set aside funds for a capital program. And then finally, number six, considering partnering with an existing business, Game On, for both open gym time and for organized sports. Currently, the facility is currently being used for organized sports such as soccer and volleyball. So those would be my recommendations, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So I have a couple comments. So the question is not that we don't need essential services. I think we're all aware that we need essential services and that we want to fund our fire department. But that's not what we were asking in this report. We weren't asking for, to set a priority. It was just to ask of how much would it cost and what the plan would be. And I feel that we have not gotten any type of plan put together because you're now putting that to the Recreation Commission. That is a voluntary board, and is now you're expecting them to put together an entire recreation plan. And then also, was there discussion with the Public Works Director on what the current capital needs are for our park system?
No, there wasn't not a specific discussion with him for what you were calling current capital needs.
Okay, well, in section 1 of the resolution, the city administrator and Public Works Director is hereby requested to provide council with a report or recommendations regarding the city's current park system with needs capital improvements. So,
Well, I think I just said that, Mr. Chair, and when I was giving you the millage, which would help to maintain the
yes,
current park
that is
system.
covered in section 3 under the finance director. So the section 1 was requesting what the capital needs are of the park system. Where is the parks? What do we need to upgrade? What parks are in the most need is what that is requesting.
Well, as I mentioned, there were 5 parks that have playground equipment on them. You asked me also not to go through the whole report. So part of that report, I also explained that in 2 of the parks, there were some basketball courts that ultimately were taken down. Part of that was obviously because of some of the illegal activity that was taking place around those courts. So obviously, if something like that was going to be put back up or maintained, obviously there would be money that would have to be expended for that, and that would be included in the amount that I had recommended in the
so in your recommendation of $250,000,
75,000.
270. I'm sorry, 275,000.
Correct.
So
Yes.
in the recommendation of $275,000, what percentage is going to capital improvements?
Approximately from that one, approximately 60%.
All right. And then how much is going towards personnel?
Only for the part-time recreation director.
So we would only have a part-time recreation director.
At this particular point, yes. I mean, ultimately, we would like to get to the point where he or she would be able to also hire some part-time personnel. But again, that would obviously be based on getting and generating a program that's going to have enough people. Right now, as you already know, again, when you look at some of the park situations that we don't have people to, let's say, supervise the parks, like let's say in the summer during the day or something like that. So because of that, there's really, at this particular point, there isn't much that we can do, but that would at least be a start.
So out of the capital improvements, you're saying 60% of that is going
Approximately
towards
60%, right?
Approximately 60%. So of that money, what are the plans with that?
Well, for actually several things. So number one, one of the things that I would like to do is actually have some kind of, if we're going to do things such as putting up the basketball courts, is to make sure that there is some kind of security around that so that we don't have to take them down. We already know that, we've had basketball rims removed, not just from North College Hill, but also Springfield Township. We would be able to put, we got an $80,000 grant that was where we were able to put 2 pieces of inclusive equipment into Dumley Park. Some of that money we would use as matching grants, of course, to be able to obtain grants to put additional inclusive equipment on some of the other parks, such as Veterans Park, such as Stapleton Park as well. So we would use some of that money for that as well. And then obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but if there is consideration, like I said, with the additional capital program, perhaps in one case, not in each park, but at least in one, that we would be able to have a water component. And that one, I was specifically thinking of the one at Dumley Park. And then also, if we were able to the best of our ability, to be able to accumulate enough to also demolish what is known as the old baseball. Excuse me, just a second. I'm terribly sorry. There would be to demolish the old baseball building, which is no longer being used for any kind of a sports or recreational purposes. And then that additional ground would then be able to be used for more playground purposes.
So is this what you're saying, the first year of millage? So the first year is 165,000 approximately for capital improvements that we've been spending on that. And so is that covering just the first year, or what are we covering, like over the next 5 years? What would be, your millage for if we did a levy?
No, ultimately what we would do, or what at least I would recommend to the board, would be to set aside some funds in order to have more of a building. But again, I kind of pointed this out in the report, to coordinate that as we are looking at actually perhaps moving from from this current facility to a larger facility where we would be able to house both the government services and recreation services. But for the parks themselves, yes, we would be able to at least be able to start putting that money toward the improvement of, as I just mentioned, Shaper Park, Veterans Park, as well as Dunley Park.
Was the discussion had to ever use part of the money for debt services planning, for having some sort of either bond issuance to fund large capital improvement projects concerning parks, recreation buildings?
No, not at this particular time, no.
Okay.
Obviously, debt service is in particular when we're talking about something like debt service, the concern, and one of the things that I pointed out in the report, which is the fact that on average in the survey that they took, they noticed that approximately 60% of the funds, and this is a nationwide average, 60% of the funds came out of the general fund. Only about 8% came from levies. If we were going to do that in order to obtain some kind of debt, as you were pointing out, and as I had mentioned, that to me would be something that would be used, or something where a levy, quote unquote, would be appropriate, but not necessarily. I wasn't looking at it to retire to borrow money to retire debt.
Well, I know levies are passed to borrow debt. And that is, if we were able to, show the citizens, with this levy, we're able to, build a recreation program or a recreation building or what have you, that might be more enticing for voters to, to vote for something like that, knowing that they're going to get an actual building where they can either, if that involves water or whatever it is, that gives them something to have. An actual building.
I wouldn't disagree, Mr. Chair. I'm just saying at this particular time, it's not something that I would recommend based on where we are given our economic climate. And the reason I'm saying that is because, as you do understand, if we're going to borrow money, we would always want to be looking at some way to generate a significant, a return. In recreation programs in general, some of the recovery costs, about 25% of the recovery cost is recovered through the use of fees and basically subscriptions, which still leaves 75%. So for me, that's a concern. Now you could certainly try to do more, and I will give you this. I will say honestly that given the recent, and I'm looking at this as an economic indicator, but I will say that given the recent sale prices of homes in this region, it is surprisingly higher than what we've had probably over the past several years. If people are buying homes at those rates, there may be a likelihood that that they may be willing to use some of that money in order to pay for a recreation program. I certainly would agree with you there. However, I would say that when I look at, our payroll budget and things like that, I am not comfortable making a recommendation for us to borrow money without really a known source of revenue to help to retire that debt.
Yes, I mean, that was kind of the purpose of this report, was to kind of have a plan, an outlook to where we can move next with securing either a levy or securing some type of funding for it. That's what I was personally hoping to see. We're
Yes.
running out of time here. Does anyone else have questions for Ron about this report? Because I think we'll just have to have more conversations about it. I'd like everyone to be able to read it.
I was just say, I would just like to read it. I can't really process information that way. I need to actually see the report. So I would just ask if we could have a copy of it and then maybe kind of continue this conversation. I do have one quick question though.
Sure.
I kept looking this way because I was trying to determine is our current recreation director being paid, or is he on furlough? What is the status of that?
Well, that's a good question, Ms. Underwood. We originally, when COVID-19 first started, I did put him on furlough. However, subsequent to that, there was discussion, and it is actually on the legislation for the salary ordinance to eliminate basically the stipend altogether. So it seems to me that if that is an accurate indicator, that the council is saying they basically do not want a paid position for a recreation director.
Okay, I was just wondering if he was still kind of working, and if he was
No,
working,
he is currently not working. No,
Okay.
he's currently not working right now.
Okay, thank you.
All right. At this point, it is 7:30. We will continue, I think, our conversation, obviously, next meeting, after we have a chance to read this. And please feel free to email myself and Ron questions, because I will have a multitude of them. And then we'll pick up where we left off here next meeting. I think that's all I have to adjourn.
Yeah. Are you asking for a second?
Yes.
I'll second.
Yes. Thank you.
Welcome.
And is Amber on here? I don't see her.
Nope, I don't see her.
She is the 882.
Oh, she's 882.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So, all right. So I think it's ending at 7:31.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Hey, Keith,
Oh.
Yes, ma'am.
can you go ahead and close that meeting out and put up the splash for the other one?
Will do.
Thank you.
Hey Mary Jo, can you hear me?
Yes, Amber, I hear you.
Cool, okay. And where I'm dialing in, will somebody let me know when the screen changes? I'm actually on my way to East Tennessee. I have some family things to deal with. Are we ready?
We are
Can
now.
you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you now. Okay.
During the last meeting, I kept saying, hello, hello, hello. I had a comment or 6 and nobody could hear me.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I could not hear you last meeting.
That's okay. Can you see me?
No.
No.
Okay, that's okay.
Okay, so the time is now 7:34, and we're going to go ahead and start budget and finance. I know I hear Mr. Hedger and Mrs. Zorb and Mrs. Underwood, so everyone is here, yeah?
Yes.
Yes, and also Brian Fells is here as well.
Hello,
Awesome. Hi,
everyone.
Mr. Phil.
Hello, hello.
So is Miss Hall.
So, hi, Miss Hall.
Hi.
Sorry, guys. So, yeah, I'm on my way to East Tennessee. I'm going through the hills. If I do lose service, then I'm going to call right back in. I apologize. There's kind of unforeseen circumstances. So, you guys have in front of you, hopefully now, the agenda. A lot of stuff on it is just stuff that needs to be sent to the clerk to get in our council meeting. But tonight, we're going to listen to the administration talk about the 2020 budget and where we are. Is everybody cool with that?
I'm sorry. I just I imagine that that's going to be a rather long thing. Is that correct, Ms. Hall?
It shouldn't be unless there's a lot of questions. I was just gonna go over some highlights, if that's okay.
I had invited Chief Fells just to kind of because we have been talking a lot about the fire department and kind of we just, and it's not on the agenda, but it's kind of old business. I just didn't want him to sit.
It is always on the agenda. So Ms. Hall, Mr. Fells, do you guys want to pick who goes first? Do you want to flip a coin? I'm cool either way. I think everybody else is cool either way. So
You can let Mrs. Hall go. I'll just chime in as it pertains to the fire department. That's fine.
Okay. All right, so I'll just go ahead. This is our Q2 report for our financials. And I just want to keep in mind for everyone that coronavirus is still playing a huge role in uncertainty with everything for 2020 as well as 2021. But just to talk a little bit about our revenues and where we stand right now, we are doing pretty okay considering a lot of uncertainty in the beginning of the year. So far, the general fund, our revenues have totaled about $1.9 million. The majority of that is from income tax, and that's coming in around 1.4 million. We have other revenues. I know mayor's court fees are down, but rental and vacant property fees are actually up due to the increased rate that we are charging for people now. So if we were to take the income tax budget, we budgeted 2.55 million for income tax revenue and multiply that by 50%, we should be landing at about 1.3 million. And we're actually hitting at about 1.4. So we're about 9.18% above our budget right now, which is a good thing considering the ups and downs we've had. And just to throw in there, August is looking like it's going to be a higher than, larger than usual collections. And again, that is due to the extended deadline for July 15th. We're still determining what those final numbers will be, but it's looking like it'll have us sitting at about 5% above budget once we calculate July and August. So as we move along, I do want you all to keep in mind that because of unemployment, I just received like an email from the Office of Budget and Management in Columbus where they're describing unemployment has dropped from, I want to say, around 13% down to about 10.9%. So, there's a lot of folks that are on unemployment right now, and that could have an impact on our 2021 tax revenues next year. Another thing that I noticed this year is that some of our withholdings are slightly down, and that could be because people were laid off and have not been hired back. So we're keeping an eye on what some of these indicators are going to mean in the future. So just keep that in mind as I go along here. So our charges for services, our franchise fees, our cable franchise fees, and our EMS fees are expected to meet our budgeted estimates, and our I think it's our garbage collection fees also are wrapped up in that number as well. Those are expected to meet budget. Where we're seeing some issues with budget are, of course, the liquor permit. So there's not a lot of people getting those right now. Again, due to COVID. I mentioned earlier that our mayor's court fees are down a little bit because of the shutdown. So some people are just now starting to catch up some of those payments. So now we'll hop over to some expenditure items. Our general fund came in at about 1.7 million on at the end of June, which is good. That shows that we're under our revenues, which is good. And of that amount, police comprises about 51.65% of that number. I want to add that our non-personnel items, we are expecting to be below budget on some of those. And that's mainly because in March, when everything was shut down, we made a decision to postpone some non-essential spending. So I think that's playing into our revenues not being as high as they probably could have been. But we are making sure that we are on track with some of our personnel line items as far as salaries and benefits are concerned. So just the overall state of our general fund right now, as all the data so far that we have is showing that we are looking favorable at this time. And we're hoping that we will have a carryover balance that can help us get through any difficult times in 2021. And as we're looking at 2021, I just want you all to know that our department heads are working on their budgets right now. Also, we are planning to push back the December 31 pay date to January 4th, and that's an effort to make sure that we meet our 2020 budget. I believe we are in a 27 pay year, I think, so that's why we're going to try to build that extra pay into the budget next year. And also just to keep in mind, police will be getting a 4% increase in wages that will have to be tacked onto our budget. That's part of their negotiated increase. We're also going to be entering into negotiations with fire. And I know I've had preliminary discussions with the fire chief, and we know that a 4% increase in fire salaries is not going to be enough to make us competitive with other departments. Another factor that we're looking at is that maybe tax revenues, income tax revenues, that is, might be around a 2% decline. I got an email from the county auditor today, and our property taxes are going to drop about 3%. That's what they're budgeting for 2021. Local government revenue is expected to plummet about 20%. So all that being said, it's possible that we will see some revenue challenges in 2021 that we need to be prepared for and address with some of our budgeting this year. So that's all I have. If you have any questions.
I just have a side note. That felt like a roller coaster. I felt like I heard something good and then I heard something bad and then I heard something good. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I just want to make sure there's some context to the good news. It's good, but we still need to be cautious. So.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. And Miss Mary Jo, that was definitely like a roller coaster. I was like, okay, we're up, and then we're going to be down again. And then, so I'm down 3%. Okay.
I certainly appreciate you being frank with us, Ms. Hall. I appreciate that.
I do as well.
Since we have Chief Fells here, Chief, can you just tell us what we need to do to be competitive, and also, I don't remember, there were a lot of questions last time, but and I'm sure that they'll come back up once you start talking. So
Yeah. Long story short, yeah, a lot of the discussion came. You guys can hear me, correct? Everybody hear me?
Yes, sir. I
Yes.
can hear you.
yes,
Yeah, so a lot of this came up in trying to project out kind of the direction we were going from the fire task force into things, but we started looking at part-time pay scales around the county, and basically, you know, realizing that where we sit right now at $14 and some change in the starting salary for our department isn't competitive when you look across the union pay scale and their percentage increases across the various grades. Just for instance, I'm sitting here looking at Harrison's part-time pay scale from September 18th of 2018. They were starting at $18 an hour for an EMT basic. We're $14.76 today. So just to give you an idea of where we stand, and I got some other ones here just to throw some numbers at you. Cheviot is another one, another competitor. We also just inherited a new competitor to our north, Mount Healthy, who's going to be in direct competition for our employees and employs at least 4 of our people right now. So hold on one second here. But yeah, first year firefighter for Cheviot makes $26.87 an hour. So that gives you an idea of where we stand. A 4% increase only takes us to roughly 15.25 an hour increase. So if we're serious about maintaining this part-time model, we got to make a much bigger jump than 4%. Now that being said, I understand that. Go ahead.
Chief Fells, real quick though, just to clear up one thing though, we do have 3 full-time people there. Those 3 positions are filled, right?
Correct. And each one, there's one
Cool.
per day. They're spread across the 3 unit days. So those are filled. Like I said, all these departments I mentioned, Harrison, Cheviot, I could go down the list, Sharonville, Springdale, their part-time employees are supplemental employees. They staff primarily with full-time people, and Mount Healthy will be the same way. Unfortunately, we are staffing a full-time fire department on all part-time people with the exception of those 3 folk. You know, so that they make up 25% of the daily staffing. This other 75 are all part-time folk. And just it came up in the fire task force meeting because we've had a number of shifts where we've been down to 1, 2, 3 is quite common over the last several weeks. And you guys are all aware of the incident where the child got struck. I know everybody that's involved in task force heard my spiel on this, but that was just the icing on the cake. That was the first run of many that came in that day when we had 2 people on duty. That particular run required a police officer to drive the ambulance to the hospital because we only had 2 because of 2 last-minute call-offs. The next run after that was a cardiac arrest with 2 people. And then they had 7 other runs between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. that night, with 4 of which were handled by mutual aid. So just to give you an idea, you know, and this past Friday, I came in and had to work an overnight shift because we only had 1 person working. So we've tried to hire some folk. We're onboarding 4 right now. But long story short, yeah, we just aren't competitive. We aren't competing with the full-time firefighters' ability to make overtime, and we aren't even competing with other part-time timers' job, you know, other part-time jobs. So if they have to choose somewhere, we are the last pick. So just, I know I'm kind of working with Ari to kind of figure out, you know, what we can afford and what we can't afford to come up with in negotiations, but that's kind of where we stand right now.
Chief Fells, those 2 salaries that you threw at us from Harrison and Cheviot, those are their part-time salaries?
Those are part-time. Yeah.
$26, almost $27 for a part-time Cheviot.
Let me pull up I'm looking at the flyer here. Yeah. It's, yeah, they started $18 an hour for an EMT basic with 6 months experience. And it goes all the way up to a paramedic at year 3 for $22.95 an hour. and they make extra $2 an hour on the weekends. I'm looking at all their things. They get $150 for footwear, you know, and yeah.
So where's the 2687 that you quoted us?
That is,
That's a full time.
that's Cheviot.
Right.
Once let me pull up there. Let me find her. I'm sorry, I'm looking through my. I know Springfield Township. If you remember when we passed our levy, well, we said, well, we're going to pay, you know, we're going to top out at $19 an hour for our folk. Well, they came in and offered $21 an hour starting the minute we passed our levy. So Cheviot, let me see here. This is from June 1st of 2019 through May 31st of 2020. First year firefighter, 2687. And then they get a 3.5% raise in 2020 on top of that. A second year makes 2840, and then they go all the way up to a fourth year firefighter at 3144. So, yeah, and you know, all these departments that are using, some of these are, I have a ton of full-time stuff. A lot of their part-time salaries are mimicking that because they're all tending to fade. They're fading away from the part-time model. Coleraine used to be 80% part-time, 20% full-time. In the last 10 years, they've completely flip-flopped that ratio. Places like Cheviot, Springdale, Springfield Township have all kind of done the same because of the unreliability of that part-time system. And then, you know, kind of case in point, you guys, in the salary ordinance that was going around, this brings up the 1,560 hour rule, so to speak. I kind of ran the numbers. There's roughly 4 to 5 people now that would exceed that currently that we would lay off. Those 4 to 5 folk are the ones that make the department go around, are the ones that pick up the extra shifts that show up on those Friday and Saturday nights. You know, if we enacted a 1,560 hour rule, we'd effectively be out of business on our part timers. So I don't, you know, I've talked to Bill Dieters about that. I don't know how we get around it. There's a gray area he sees between what you schedule somebody and what they voluntarily pick up. There's also the Ohio Police and Fire perspective that if anybody challenges you, because it is required by Ohio law, that a full-time firefighter be paid into the Ohio Police and Fire Pension Fund at 24%. That if someone was to ever challenge that and they saw somebody working 3,000 hours a year, that nobody in their right mind would see that as a part-time employee. And we have a number of those folks. So yeah, we've been getting by, kind of skating the Affordable Care Act, kind of skating the pension law. You know, this part-time system is kind of, it's, I don't know, it's coming to its end, and we have to make some serious decisions moving forward, or how we're either going to add some full-time staff or look at different options.
So,
Madam Chair.
Mr. Bell, yes, Mr. Mosley?
Yes, thank you. The other thing I wanted to add was that we actually do, the contract for the part-time firefighters expires this year. So we do have to prepare for contract negotiations for that. So in other words, we need to listen carefully to what Mr. Fells is saying, because that's going to play into you know, our negotiations for part-time firefighters. And that's just, again, it's something that we have to think about, which is why I said I honestly believe that this has to be the top priority that is addressed, that we have to address as a city.
Yeah.
So what are your suggestions? I mean, it all comes down to money, of course, but I mean, are we?
So looking at Mount Healthy as an example of kind of where the bare bones where we need to be. Their chief there said they're going to be paying their full-time firefighters $62,000 a year, and they have a part-time contract very similar to us as far as the percentages across the years of service and how they build it out. It's almost a mirror of ours exactly. If you back that down, that puts their EMT basic at a starting salary of about $18 an hour. And it kind of ramps up into the full-time medic and all that, making about $22, $23 an hour. So that's, you know, unfortunately, we're bound by a collective bargaining agreement. Fortunately, unfortunately, and the percentages across the various years of service and the various certifications that these guys hold and gals hold. But yeah, $18 an hour. I don't know what that is from what we're making the 1476 we're starting at now. That's quite a bit more than 4%. But yeah, if we want to remain competitive with our neighbor to the north, even in the part-time realm, that's where we're going to have to be. So I don't know. Financially, I don't know if we. I don't know
Can you,
if I can sustain.
real quick, can somebody remind me what Mount Healthy just passed as their additional levy?
Sure. Yeah, it was a 12.5 mil levy. And when they passed it, it would provide for 7 full-time firefighters. Now, having said that, it doesn't mean that their fire department is going to be majority full-time, but because they're still going to, I believe that their part-time will exceed their full-time, but it's a lot closer. And certainly will be much closer than where we are right now.
But they also still have a 5 mil in the books that did not go away.
Correct. So in
So
other
is it
words, it will be a total of
17.2?
17.5 mil.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I get it 100%. So what do we think as far as the millage goes that we need like to look at or think of as a target for us?
Well, Madam Chair, if I may, that was one of the reasons that the mayor had convened the fire department task force. So they're working on that. There isn't an answer right now, but I know that that is something that they are that they're figuring out right now, and I know they'll have a recommendation very soon. Well, within the next couple of months, I'll put it that way.
Okay. Chief Fells, I know that last year, sorry guys, I know that last year when we were looking at doing the joint fire district, I think the number that was thrown out was roughly 13 mils total for us to sustain by ourselves. Was that?
Yeah, it's just a matter of
Okay.
what level of staffing the task force comes up with. You know, we've
Okay,
lost
cool.
the economies of scale, and you know, I don't know if we'll be around that millage or maybe a little more. It just depends on, you know, like I said, if they want to, you know, 5 people a day, 6 people a day, and then what ratio of part to full time we end up coming up with, what we think the residents will pass and can afford.
Chief Fells, I would presume that you're anticipating a few less runs if Mount Healthy actually gets themselves up to speed.
You are correct. Yeah, I put about what I gave to Ms. Hall for a projection for next year. I shorted our EMS billing revenue return, or net, down about 25,000, just to anticipate that. But yes, I would assume they'd be making all of their runs, or the vast majority of them.
But my point, I mean, I see where you're going straight to the money, but I'm going straight to the personnel, which would say we might not need as many humans because we're not doing all the mutual aid runs up to Mount Healthy to cover them.
Yes and no. So yes, we might see a little drop, but if you look at, remember any of my presentations over the years, I mean, it always trends upward. There's a little variability, but in this point, you know, at the end of a 5-year levy term, we're looking out, we'll be right back where we are, or even more. So Mount Healthy has been better as of late, and we're still making runs over there. They've been carrying 4 since the early spring. Mr. Mosby, if you remember when after the fire district failed, shortly thereafter, you realized that they couldn't continue, and they put 4 on duty a day instead of 3. And that helped out a little bit. Without them having a medic service, though, they still continue to use our medic service quite frequently. And that being said, too, like we had the lag when we passed our levy, they're going to have that same lag time going into 2021, having to hire all those medics and do a hiring process and all that. So I don't expect them to be up and running till probably July, to where their medic service is where it needs to be. And that's assuming they can even be competitive. Honest to God, $62,000 a year. When you look at some of the full-time flyers, it still isn't I mean, Springdale just put out one for $70,000 a year with no experience walking in the door. So 62 for Mount Healthy is still well below where they need to be.
Ms. Zorb, I did hear what you were saying. I would actually be more concerned, not with the fewer amount of runs that we may be giving as far as mutual aid, but what we may have to receive. Mr. Fells can tell you that, we've had several occasions now where we have been quite frankly inadequately staffed, like either one person. There was a time where we actually had no people, and when we have no people, and Brian, you can confirm this, but we have to actually switch our calls now to when they were routed, they're automatically rerouted to a different fire station. So my concern is that we'll be receiving more mutual aid calls.
Yes. Yeah, it's been.
I mean, really, right now it's a crapshoot. We don't know.
Yeah. I mean, long story short, since the 4-person model was modeled out in 2001, we're still operating at today, and the runs have gone up 100% plus. Yeah, and we're still there. Yeah, the number of overlapping runs, that's what we got to contend with, and the number of call-offs from part-timers. That's what really kills us. It'd be great if we could guarantee 4 every single day. 5 would be awesome. But when people start calling off or don't pick up shifts, and you get down to 3, now it's 1 run. And on that run, one run happens, everything's out of service. There's no fire response. There's no second backup EMS response. And it turns into chaos, So I don't know. Yeah, there will be some decrease more than likely, but it's not going to be that substantial. And within the next 4 or 5 years, inside of another levy term, it'll be right back to where it is or more, for sure. Anybody got any questions? I know that was a lot. I don't want to overstep the goals of the fire task force. We're still hashing things out, and I don't think we know something has to be done, but we really haven't come up with a solid solution yet that we all agree on. We just all agree that something has to be done. That doing nothing is not an option at this point.
Well, as always, thank you so much, Chief Fells. You are very knowledgeable, and even though the news is not always good, but it's definitely something that we need to hear. So thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to come to our meeting. And I keep telling everybody this, but I just want to confirm with you that it's okay for anybody to just kind of reach out to you to ask questions and about just how the fire department works and how the staffing works and that kind of thing.
Yeah, always open door anytime. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I can.
Cool. Sorry, I dropped you guys. So, yeah.
Did you have any other topics, Miss Bailey?
Oh, sorry. I didn't know if we were done with the fire department or not. I guess we're just kind of waiting on that until we have more information from the task force. Okay.
I think that he's finished sharing information for the time being. The task force is certainly working on. I'm on the task force, so I can tell you that we're working on a solution with regard to a potential fire levy. However, I was just concerned for our salary ordinance about the limit to the part-timers. I think that that's something that we need to address.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry, like I said, we're My phone cut out in the middle of a mountain, so, okay. So as far as the 1560 hours go,
Madam Chair, I'm sorry. Ms.
yes,
Bailey.
ma'am. Mm-hmm. Yes, Madam Mayor.
Hello.
Hello?
Increase. Oh, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me?
Tracy, I can
Yes.
hear you.
Yes, Tracy.
Yes,
Okay,
we can hear you.
you guys couldn't hear me in the first meeting. I would like to just state that if you are considering an increase, if you would please get that to Ms. Hall, because she is working on the 21 budget. So the 2021 budget. So if you are considering a possible increase for the fire department for that, for the part-time, to make us more attractive for new hires, if you could come up with an amount and get that to her so she can possibly try to work that into the budget, rather sooner than later. I don't know if that's an option for you or, but Chief Phelps has said it numerous amount of times. We've even talked about it as well. But Ms. Hall would need to know that if that's something that council was considering doing.
Okay. Yeah, Ms. Hall and Mr. Mosby, our meeting next week, Monday.
I'm sorry,
sorry.
say that again,
What's
Chief
that?
Mills?
Our meeting referenced the part-time firefighters. That's next Monday,
Uh,
the planning meeting for that.
oh, no, I'm sorry. I have to look. I don't have that one right off the top of my head.
I'm in a time crunch here. I just want to make sure I.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Hold on a minute. It is next Tuesday
Tuesday. Okay.
at 2 p.m.
Okay.
And if I could, please, if I could follow up on something that the mayor was just requesting. I've already sent something to the president of council, and I made a recommendation. I will only underscore that the mayor's request is important, but as I mentioned to everyone, the contract negotiations are coming up. And so that is going to have to be something that will be considered when going into the contract negotiations. Yeah, so I'll just leave it at that right now.
So as far as the 1,560 hours in the salary ordinance, I feel like that if we take it off completely, then it's going to open up a wormhole for other part-time employees to abuse it. But that's just my personal thought on it. I do see that we can't shut our fire department down. I mean, we can't. And again, for me, that is not an option at all to lay people off.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I had something for you. I really don't. I just, the model that we're using, the staff a full-time department with part-time people. I think we're carrying 32 folk right now. We carry 40 plus people to make that work. And then we'd have.
We ran the numbers to see what it would take to take the people who are completely over 1560 and the ones that are holding the department on their backs. So we ran those numbers to see what it would look like to make them full time.
Yeah, so I have, and here's the catch to the whole thing, is that we are bound by civil service and a union contract. I wish I could just come in and dub those all those that work those hours full time, but I can't. That has to be offered up to a competitive exam, ran by civil service, and that eligibility list is where those promotions have to come from. And there is an active eligibility list right now with one person still on it until April next year. And he's not one of the ones that works all the hours. He's actually a non-healthy employee. So yeah, the unfortunate thing is, and I'll use his name's firefighter John Miller. Many of you probably know him. This is how he makes his living. You know, he's been doing that for probably in excess of 15 years, working right around 3,000 hours a year. If we cut him back and restrict him to 1,560 hours, he would have to leave and go get a job somewhere else, and that would leave a massive hole in the schedule. And he's also one of my best employees that you know, works his rear end off when he's there. He always shows up. You know, I don't have enough good things to say about him, but unfortunately he's an EMT. And you know, the whole medic thing comes into play too. So
is there a way to start maybe a new classification of part-time A versus part-time B? Does that make sense? Like, could there be?
Yeah, I wish Mr. Dietrich was here to weigh in on this, but no. Long story short, if any of you know what happened over at Colerain, that would put us in kind of that territory. Once the city comes in and puts something on paper that schedules a part-time employee for full-time hours in writing, then you get yourself in all kinds of trouble. And Colerain found that out because they called it the 2B program. They gave these firefighters a 24, 48-hour schedule and allowed them to work those hours. And then they worked for about a year and a half, and they all decided to sue Colerain, and they won. And they got all the back benefits and pension payments owed to them. So, like I said,
so not an option.
It's not an option.
Not an option.
Not an option. Yeah, in a good conscience, like, you know, I don't want to see Miller get unemployed or anything, but in good conscience, you shouldn't be working somebody 2,600, 3,000 hours a year and not giving them some health insurance or retirement to fall back on.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle. Unfortunately, it's the way we built the department. You know, I'd have to have a roster of 40 plus people, and each one of those has, you know, $2,500 worth of turnout gear, you know, uniforms, just expenses that come with holding that many. And for many, if they can't get, you know, they're making a living between two of these part-time jobs and they can't get enough hours and they leave, and the attrition cycle starts. You know, then I'm spending money on physicals and uniforms and going through that thing, and I'm just turning over people like crazy. So there's a delicate balance of giving them enough hours to survive, and then just abusing them. We're not giving them enough and they leave. So I wish I knew what the happy mix was, but it just varies per individual. So sorry I'm so complicated.
No, I think that it's something that we definitely, well, we have to address it, and we need to fix it going forward. And, you know, sometimes things like these happen. Luckily, we have the foremost brilliant council members on the finance committee, and I think that if anybody can do it, we can, right, y'all? Yeah. So, suggestions, comments about the hourly clause? I mean,
yeah, I would just say in closing, like I said, I'm meeting with Ms. Hall and Mr. Mosby in another week. We'll have more for you moving forward as far as what it'll cost to get competitive, and the fire task force will have recommendations moving forward on what we can do to fix this 1,560-hour problem moving into the future. So I guess at this point, just stand by if you can on that 1,560-hour rule.
I mean, if that's the law, then how can we take it off of the ordinance? It's been on the ordinance since I've been on finance. So it's been on the ordinance for at least the last 5 years. Whether it's been abided by or not, I have no idea, because we're not in, council isn't in that kind of business. But as far as that being on the ordinance, it's been there the whole time.
Don't know. You guys have to tell me what you want to do. I can restrict them, or we can go short, or we can keep plugging along. It will shut down the fire department. Well, I'll be over that too. I mean, you won't have a chief and probably lose four of your employees that work 40 hours.
Okay, so although I know that it's been on the ordinance, we'll just. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Well, Chief Els, I appreciate all of the information, and I look forward to seeing what we have in a week, 2 weeks from now. We're going to change gears just for a second. Speaking of the salary ordinance, did we ever figure out if you were indeed making 12% above the lieutenants, and if the lieutenants were indeed making 12% above the deputy lieutenant?
Yeah, the lieutenants are in the collective bargaining agreement. They shouldn't be on the salary ordinance at all. The deputy chiefs have any one of 6 possible pay scales they fall into. The chief position does as well. So as it sits right now, no, I'm not. The last year, you guys passed one that gave me, God, I can't. It was like a 0.1% raise or something, and gave the deputy chief at that time a 12% raise from what he was making. It didn't fall in any particular pay scale, but all of our pay rates were a playoff of the collective bargaining agreement. And depending whether or not you're an EMT and what certifications you held, or a paramedic and what certifications you held, is what you made on that 12% above wherever you were on that part-time firefighter pay scale. So to have one particular hourly rate in there, it doesn't work for the way I saw it written in the last reading.
Okay. Cool. We probably need to fix that. Okay, so does anybody else have any more questions for the fire chief?
I do not.
No, not at this time, but I would just like to reiterate, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
All right, thanks for having me. Thank you.
Oh yeah, sorry. Thank you 100% for always keeping it real with us, even when we don't like it.
No problem. Anytime.
Thank you, Chief Bill.
Cool. So the rest of the agenda is, we've already talked about a lot of it. I know that we had decided to move some of it out of committee and onto council just for a vote to see where it goes. I have no current updates with the salary ordinance at all. I did have a city employee send me an email asking why we felt it necessary to have a clause that people can only work in one department at one time. I have not responded to that email. I feel as though with that, we got into this situation a couple of years ago, and we alleviated that because of so much confusion between splitting departments. And so that's where I'm coming from on it. I don't want to speak on behalf of everyone or the finance committee, but that's just where I'm at with it. So I kind of wanted to talk to you guys first.
Well, what I would first like to say is that when you're researching legislative history, which I do sometimes, when you go back, you're looking at like committee meeting notes. So I hope that this kind of discussion makes it into our meeting notes, or at least a summary of it. My thought is that, we have this whole thing with the fire department and what's part-time and what's full-time, and, just the potential liability to the city about, the number of hours an individual can work. And we have an individual who works, 20 hours in one department and 20 hours in another department. I don't know what individual who sent you the email. I haven't received anything like that. But my issue is that, things happen. And if somebody works over the hours, then, that's overtime, because I just don't want to expose us to that kind of liability. And then there's that whole business with, do these individuals work for this department or do they work for that department? I get tired of hearing it's always been this way. And, and also, I mean, we have enough people in the city that we can offer, maybe we can offer a job to somebody else or something. So that's why I was in support of that clause. So, just so you all know, that's kind of where I was coming from.
Ms. Underwood,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
will agree with the sentiments that or the statements that you made. And I have an additional one, is kind of along the lines of the overtime, is if a person holds 2 positions and they work over the 40 hours a week, at what pay rate do they end up getting paid the overtime? And there's the additional confusion
Should be higher.
surrounding that.
The higher of
So-
the two.
Well,
I did speak to Miss. Yeah.
so
The higher of the
well,
two.
but if we have this one job, one person, it alleviates all that confusion and all that mess also.
Agree. And I think that full-time should be full-time in one department and not split across the board, again, because which department do you deal with? Right.
It's just cleaner. It's cleaner on the budget. It's cleaner everywhere.
And then, Madam Mayor, I know in our last finance meeting, we had also spoke about the police clerk / mayor's court clerk. Did we figure out more about that, if we were paying them from the police department or the mayor's budget?
From what I understand, we were paying them from the police budget. Mr. Mosby, correct me if I'm wrong after we talked about it with Ms. Hall.
I thought Ms. Hall looked that up while we were in the meeting, I thought, didn't she?
And she said it was coming from the police budget, correct?
Yes. That's what I recall, yes.
Yeah, I recall that as well. But I'll be honest, I still have some issues with if it's coming from the police budget, then that line item says that it is a mayor's clerk position. I think that's a little misleading. That was prior to, maybe over the years, that's how it's been. So if we're taking one position, spreading it out throughout the police department, I don't think that is a fair analogy of what's actually happening, because I did call Ms. Wagner, and I had a brief conversation with her about that position, and she said at one time there was an additional person in that position. So that line item has been there for years, but apparently it's being distributed throughout for a police clerk. She said there was a position that assisted her. So I guess if the police clerks are doing the same job, so they're doing the job as a police clerk, but the line item is under the mayor's clerk court. So I think either that line item needs to disappear and not be, that's just,
But Yeah, but I think that the police clerks are under the FOP agreement or collective bargaining agreement, and
Then it doesn't need
the
to be
mayor's.
under the mayor's court
Yeah.
clerk.
Right,
needs to
right,
be
Well,
yeah,
under
they
yeah, I'm
the
wouldn't
with
even
you.
need to be listed on the ordinance if they were.
Right. So what I'm saying is, if this is something that's being done through the police department, then it needs to show under the police department.
So you're just really referring to on this ordinance though, right? I mean, because
Yeah.
it's already coming out of their budget. So we just need to fix the
Either
section that it's listed on the ordinance.
Either we're going to hire someone to do the job that the police clerks are doing for the mayor's court clerk, or we need to remove that position completely.
Is there a need to fill that position?
Well, the police clerks are doing the work.
Yeah, apparently there is, because the police clerks are doing it. But then does that eliminate the police clerks? And those positions are subject to maybe a collective bargaining if they stay up under the police. So maybe that.
Ms. Hall, is that something that you could investigate for us? If there is a human,
with the police, if they go to the police, they're subject to higher wages. So I'm not sure what the going rate for the police. I'm sorry, what he hires their clerks in at, but I believe it's $12. So I think it's like a 2-for-1. They're doing both of the positions. The other position was at 25 hours per week. Again, I'm sorry, Ms. Zorb, but Ms. Hall, do you have what that position was paying for the clerks?
The position is paying. Are you talking about the police clerk, Madam Mayor?
If we had taken the not the police clerk, but if we had just put in a mayor's clerk assistant, which is what I think, I can't remember what the item line reads.
Oh, okay.
What was that position as an assistant?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that one because we actually haven't had an assistant, certainly since I've been here. And as far as I know, that Virginia Wagner has been the only person that's been working in that position.
And as I said, I did reach out to Virginia, and she stated to me that the police clerks, which would be, I believe, I think it's Mosley.
They would be the ones that are working the 4 to 9 shift.
Is Diane Toll.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Mark. I can't think of the boy's name, but his last name is Mosley.
Malik.
Does Malik still do it?
The one, yes. Yes.
So they're like spread out. I mean, there's so many of them. I know it's a Mosley. I can't think of which one it is. His last name is Mosley. Diane and Malik. Is it just 3 or are there 4?
I'm not certain if it's 3 or 4. All I know is that at this particular point, they're working basically one night a week, and they fill one shift, which is why it was changed on the salary ordinance.
And if that's 25 hours amongst those people, then I just think this is just my personal. Either we're going to have a clerk assistant for the mayor's clerk, or we're going to shift those responsibilities, take it from under the mayor and put it onto the police department. Because it's listed as a mayor's court assistant. And obviously, when you have positions,
it says deputy court clerk, the one I'm looking at.
Right.
Deputy court clerk.
So we're not, that position is vacant. And if we're not going to have that position, if Ms. Wagner say, hey, I'm cool with and if the police department is saying, hey, I'm cool with the assistants, the clerks doing it, then that's fine. So either we're going to have to it's just a reevaluation. We have to say either we're going to hire for that position, because right now the way it looks, that position is out there and it's open. So either I'm going to have to hire somebody for that position, or we're going to have to eliminate the position and say that the police clerks do it.
Well, for the sake of cleaning up the ordinance for the future, I think that, I don't know, maybe reach out to Miss Wagner and see if it was Miss Wagner, right? And
Yes.
see if it's duties that she can do, or see if she would rather have an assistant, I guess, and get back to us. I would rather clean up the ordinance and make it state what it is and get it over with, instead of having so many different positions and titles and descriptions that are loose ends like this.
To be honest, I would, if that position, if she needs to help, I would rather have someone in that position than to rely on the police to do it. I mean, I think at some point we need to, you know, keep it separate. But, you know, again, it saves money as well. So you're right, Miss Bailey. If you would like, I can reach out to her tomorrow to see if she, in fact, needs another person in that position, just to see what her thoughts are.
Awesome. Anything else for salaries?
Can I ask a question? Do you know when you'll have that? Do we know when this salary ordinance will be complete? Are you still
I
waiting
don't
on
think that
something?
we are. I think that we're waiting on quite a few things. Mr. Dieters does need to be present at a finance meeting. We may have to call a special one to go into executive session to ask him about the clause of 1,560 hours. We're waiting on the mayor's court clerk position. I know that we can take the lieutenants off because they're not on there. They're not supposed to be on there. And then we need to figure out, based on the deputy chiefs and the chief, we passed an ordinance in 2017 or 18, I think, that they would make a 12% increase above the lieutenants and go up from there. And that hasn't been done either. So we need to figure out that ordinance as well. And I can send that to everybody tonight for future reading.
So you're looking at another 30 days?
I'm hoping not.
Okay.
But
I'm only asking because we really need to take care of some things within our tax department. And I don't know if you need to do a special meeting or if you can just, you know, I hate to ask you this, if you could separate it, if you would get with Mr. Mosby and Miss Hall, because we really need to get that situation taken care of in our tax department. I understand that we wanted to do it all in one, but I do know that there's been some occasions where finance has separated some of the salary ordinances. I don't know if that's something you would, I'm just asking you to consider it. Because we, you know, we just really need to get that department up, run, and done. So we can move.
In our tax department, just refresh our memory, in our tax department, basically what it is we have one person that's doing accounts receivable and accounts payable, right?
Right, but there is also
there is, yeah, let me just, so there is a tax and a finance department. The amount of responsibilities that is in the tax department has diminished. However, there is still there is a position there. There is one position also in the finance department. And what we are recommending is to take we'll make it 2 positions in finance, 0 in tax. And then and so that way we will have the separation of duties, as I believe, Amber, you had recommended a couple of months ago. And so that we can, in that particular, so one of the positions will be focused on doing the remaining of the remainder of the tax duties, and that will also be part of the accounts payable, I believe, as well. And then on the other position, we'll do the accounts receivable, and then some other duties that the finance manager or finance director will assign to that person. So in essence, we're still going to have 2 positions, but not one in tax and one in finance. It's 2 in tax. I mean, 2 in finance. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And the idea is just to get those positions filled, whether it's with the current people or outside of that.
So
if you would just consider
finance committee, how do you guys feel about separating the 2 to take care of our finance department, and then revisit and keep working on the rest of the positions?
I don't know that I care a whole lot. I don't have a whole lot of opinion, but I guess the bigger question is, why can't we figure out the whole ordinance and get it passed? I mean, how hard is this?
I agree 100%. Well, it's like every time that I receive it back, then something else comes back with it that's not correct. And so
well, let's just fix it. Let's just do it. I mean, I believe Miss Underwood said, let's just do something. Let's do it.
let's just do right. Let's do something.
Do it.
So, I mean, but that's the other thing too, though, is waiting another 30 days just to get an answer on the 1,560 hours.
Listen, we can schedule a meeting. It's not, we can just schedule a meeting and we can figure out a time that's good for everybody. We can get this done. It's not that hard. And, you know, and we can even meet on Zoom. And apparently if, you know, Mr. Hedger shows us all how to just put up a picture of ourselves, we could just put a picture up there of us, of ourselves.
Does he really have a picture of himself that's just a picture of him?
Just cheesing like you wouldn't believe.
Wow. Can somebody like take a picture of the screen and send it to me? That sounds awesome. Glorious.
It's a nice picture.
So I'm pretty much free. I guess we need to get Mr. Dieters on the phone. Well, we need to find out his schedule and get him ringed into this. And then Ms. Hall, I know that we ask a lot of you, but do you think that you can look into the police clerk being part of the collective bargaining agreement within like the next couple of days, so that way we can have all of the answers and we don't have to come back to this?
Ms. Bailey, I mean, one of the things that you have to, one of the things that has to be understood is that, we can't just place those positions in the collective bargaining agreement. Those would have to be negotiated in at the next, the next negotiation. I guess
No,
there could be an amendment. There could be an amendment, honestly, that would be, that could adjust it, but.
Mr. Mosby, they are in the collective bargaining agreement. And I know that. I think the question is how much are they being paid in the collective bargaining agreement? It's not adding the positions to that. They're already there.
And if they're not, do we want to make a different title so that they're not in there? I mean, what the world is our oyster. Let's figure out what options we have and pick one.
Okay.
Listen, I hate meetings just like the next person, but I think that we need to just have an extra one and get this thing done. because we're in
Agreed.
August now. So let's just figure it out and, make a decision and own it. And we'll invite Mr. Dieters, because we got to figure that. We got to figure him out too.
Yep. Cool. So I reckon as far as next week goes, is there any days that are on the table or off the table for anybody? Do we go back to regular session this month or next month?
In
September. Sorry, Miss Underwood.
No, you're fine. We must have clicked it on the same time.
So what does everybody's third Monday look like?
I am open on the 17th.
I'm also open.
I'm open.
Cool. Let's get with Mr. Dieters and see if he can attend it on the 17th. And if he can, then I'll go ahead and get it posted to you guys on your doorsteps, unless you guys don't want it. And it's cool to put it in your council mailbox, and then I can do that or whatever and what have you.
I don't think you have to post it for committee meetings, but for
Yes,
the
you do.
door. Are you
Yes,
sure?
you do. Yep. It's a
Yeah.
meeting. Yes, you do.
Yep. So
By law, you do, unless the person opts out.
So if you guys want me to post it on your doors, I will. If I can post it in your council mailboxes, I will. You guys just let me know
Did
how
you
you
tell
would like to be.
Did you tell us the time?
7 p.m. Or I mean, we can do it earlier. We can do 6 p.m. if y'all want to. I'm open to anything. So
I'm assuming we're going to go in executive session for some of this.
yes. You guys want to start early? Start at 6:30?
Let's go with 6:30. If anyone, does anyone else care?
I don't care. 6:30 is good for me.
Cool. Do you guys want to be posted on your doorsteps or in your mailbox? How do we want to do this?
I do not need it.
Cool.
I don't need a notice.
No notice here.
Awesome. Great. You guys are making my life easy today. Kind of. Okay, cool. If nobody has anything else, then we can adjourn.
I just want to say I appreciate you guys taking that extra meeting in order to get this done. We're trying to get this department up, running, and fully staffed. I appreciate it.
Amber, I'll second your motion.
Cool. Miss Zorb, ready to go?
Yes.
Okay. Miss Underwood?
Yeah. All you needed is 2. We're good.
And that's why
Okay.
I'm sitting
Sorry.
here perplexed.
Sorry, guys.
Right.
No, guys, I just want to
Good
make
night,
sure that I'm
everyone.
like not cutting anybody off. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just want to
All
make sure
good.
you guys are good. Cool. All right, guys. Thank you.
Night.
Yeah.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.